mission. All right, and we're back after another long, weird hiatus. I'm Pumpkin Jack, and today we are back in the Ghastly Hallows. I'm accompanied by...
This is Red.
And extraterrestrial bolt.
And given our current thing that we're just given our current title, we are today stopping by Landing Zone. Shit, I used to know where that landing zone was back when I was a super nerd. What is it? LV 4116.
Sounds right to me.
Yep, LV 4116, where Bolt has found himself a special weird egg that we really should not have picked up, but we did because we hang out with a robot who is not aware of a lot of things that go on in the universe. Isn't that right?
Yes, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, unaware. So you can't blame me if things go sideways.
We will anyways, as that's just how life goes. Yeah, LV 426. That's the area where it's there, where they land on. That is where the Nostromo crew goes ahead and finds the Xenomorph. So, I actually wanted to go over this one today. I'm going to do a quick retread of just the general premise of the film, and then we're just going to I'm going to let you guys have the floor on this one because this one's a big one. So, Alien. Ridley Scott directed, written by Roy Bannon. He has another big writing credit under his belt too, as a lot of people don't know. Wrote this one, released it in 1979. For a 1979 movie, it looks like it was made just yesterday with the clean cuts and the wonderful effects with the alien. A bunch of space truckers are on their way home to drop off cargo when they're woken up out of their cryo sleep and told to pick up another item due to a strange signal that they were receiving from another life form on another planet. When they go down,
they were sleeping.
When they go down, they pick up they run into the eggs. The face hugger attaches itself to the 10th Doctor, John Hurt. And at that point, they bring it back on the ship and hilarity ensues. Because in space, no one can hear you scream, which I actually think is still a pretty good tagline. So, I'm going to try to avoid going beat for beat, plot for plot on this one, because I honestly think there's a lot more. With this one, I feel like it's everything else but the alien that's also pretty creepy and kind of says a lot about how the world is still to this day. But I want to open it up to you guys. So, first off, what do you guys think of this one from the beginning? Anyway.
I'll let you lead the floor on this one.
Me!
Yeah.
So, go with the fish. He can't be affected by the xenomorphs. Nick and I am a fucking jack-o'-lantern. Let's go.
I'm safe in my house. No xenomorphs here. So, well, the first thing that I have to talk about is the special effects. One of the first things that I thought when you have the long pan across the bottom of the cargo ship was, I am so glad that they made this in 1979, because today they would have used CGI because, yes, it's a lot cheaper, but it would have looked horrible. It would have looked terrible, but it looks great in its 1979 real model glory. It's just one of the things that I find very satisfying about watching sci-fi from previous decades is that everything is actually there, and it almost always looks a lot better than CGI. And I really like this movie. It touches on a lot of the kind of science-y things that get me going with movies. It's scary. The music is great. Yeah, it's just a movie that I enjoy.
Ditto. I
Yeah,
can't get over the design
and
of the alien itself too.
yeah. It's not a typical gray, like a little guy with gray or green skin with sort of the um diagonal almond shaped big bug eyes and the bald head. It really is something different. It doesn't really seem to have eyes either.
Sorry about that.
It's all right.
I'm plugging in. Am I plugged in? I'm plugged in. Good. Sorry. For some reason, even though this battery has been plugged in, it was about to tell me, no, you're not plugged in. I'm about to take one big dump on your stream, computer.
So yeah. I mean, yeah, you have to plug in. You have to make sure that your pod is operational, or else you'll die.
Yep. God.
Yeah. But
Speak.
speaking of the pods, okay, so at the beginning of the movie, John Hurt is the first one to wake up out of the pod. Then you go to the breakfast table and you see the cat. The cat's just chilling on the floor. My question is, does the cat have its own little pod? Is it a perfectly cat-sized pod like a cat carrier?
I
And if
thought
so,
I thought it had its own pod, like a small animal pod, or I
hmm,
thought that it slept in with one of them.
yeah, because at the end she does try to put it into one of the larger ones. Um, or is that just like a transport thing?
I thought it was her pod.
It was her pod, yeah. Well, I mean, maybe she couldn't get to the other pods. I don't know, um, uh, but yeah, I like the thought that the cat had its own little cat-sized pod,
I like the idea you can take your pets with you into outer space.
right? I mean, sending animals into space, that's a time-honored tradition. Dogs, chimps.
So actually, I wanted to touch on this though, with the animal being with the cat in space.
Hmm.
I got super New York bodega vibes when I saw the cat.
Oh,
And then once I saw the cat, I'm like, you know something? This spaceship does not seem new and clean. This spaceship is used. And it's used hard.
hmm.
Like, it was apparently the concept of the spaceship was meant to contradict Star Wars. Because the idea is Star Wars is in a galaxy far, far away, and almost everything in that movie looks clean, crisp, and wonderful.
Hmm.
But in this one, the spaceship looks like it's been used on about 100 missions. It looks like it's pretty much cheap. The people that are there are not enamored or wondered with the idea of leaving the planet. They're kind of like, oh god, we really just want to go home. Why are we getting off to do this stupid mission for this stupid thing? And a lot of them are like, so you're telling us if we don't even do this side job, I know you're offering
Oh,
us a little more money, like, fuck
I
off.
think you're talking about Star Trek.
Oh no, I mean in this one, in Alien, like they get woken up to go do more work, and then they're like, dude, we already finished our assignment. We're on our way home with the cargo. Why the fuck are you bothering us?
No, but you said you were comparing it to Star Wars,
Yes,
or that it was meant as a foil to Star Wars, but I think you're talking about Star Trek.
I remember hearing, because I was looking it up before when I had to take this class. I learned this in science fiction class.
Oh,
Uh, it was meant to was when Fox signed it. They're like, all right, Star Wars just knocked it out of the park. We need another science fiction story, but we don't want to do the same thing over again. And they did this one, but the style, to my understanding, is meant to kind of like be the counter opposite. So where you're kind of like there happy in Star Wars, right? Like when Luke leaves the planet, he's kind of
okay.
excited to get on the Millennium Falcon and go off with Obi-Wan. In this one, these people are not happy to have been disturbed and go on to another planet. They're kind of like, dude, we don't want to do this. And you're telling us we get a
Okay.
bonus or we forfeit our shares
Right.
for this.
I
Like,
thought you were talking about Star Trek, where like the whole crew very much has a sense of purpose,
well,
and
it's,
everyone there is high performing and wants to be there.
the thing about Star Trek is that Star Trek is the socialist future, whereas I think Alien is another example of the capitalist future, where it's like,
Interesting. Okay.
Starfleet doesn't get paid, right?
That's a good question.
No, they don't get paid.
I assume they get some sort of like
The
retirement deal.
Nope.
But,
The
I
joy
mean,
of exploring the
there's no
galaxy is as far as they get. All they get. That's it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe that can be the next Star Trek series. Star Trek HR division, and we can
Star
figure
Trek:
out
The
what
Quest for
everyone's
More
talking
Money. But fucking Spaceballs. Which also had a funny joke for this one. John Hurt returns when that alien pops out of his stomach after eating the special. Hello, my baby. Hello, my darling. Hello,
Oh,
my
yes,
ragtime
that's
gal.
It was tragic. That was
Not again.
tragic.
Oh, and that's when they go, check, please.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh no, not again. I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
some of the
So
people
speaking
stumble
of
on.
the John Hurt thing,
Go for it.
speaking of probably the most famous scene in the whole franchise, where the infant alien that's all finished doing all of the things that it must do in its life cycle inside its initial host bursts out of John Hurt's chest to very bloody and gruesome effects. That is supposedly based on an actual parasite in nature. So there's this group of wasps that are sometimes called parasitoid wasps, and
I'm
what
not.
they
I'm just
do.
gonna cut you off slightly. What part of the world are they located in?
Oh, that's a good question. Let's see.
Shit, you scare us
Um,
and you don't tell us where they're located, so we don't go there.
I'm guessing South
Well,
America.
they don't infect
Guessing
people.
it's in Australia.
I can promise you that I can promise you that a parasitoid wasp is not going to burst out of your chest.
That's, you know what? Those are famous last words. Right?
Yep, they sure are. They sure are.
No. They're the famous first words from the scientist at the beginning of the movie.
It's not any better, man.
Well, you see, it's actually quite impossible because the parasitoid wasp's life cycle relies on the tarantula. You see,
This is not comforting me. Not at all. But please.
the
continue.
physiology of the tarantula is intrinsic to is essential to the parasitoid wasp's life cycle.
You know what? I didn't understand a word you just said, so I'm going to sit down.
I didn't know you were standing up, so that works for me. It's the same difference.
So,
That's why
yes.
you never stand for nonsense. That's why you always must have a chair nearby.
But yes,
Alright.
continue with the parasite because this sounds fascinating.
Where these guys located. Anyway, that's not important. We'll give an official Ghastly Hallows podcast public service announcement on how to avoid parasitoid wasps by the end. Anyway, so what they do is they lay their eggs inside a living invertebrate of some kind, be it a tarantula or a caterpillar or what kind of invertebrate the host is depends on the species of parasitoid wasps. But they lay their eggs inside. The eggs hatch while inside the hosts, and then they eat the host from the inside while it's still alive. And the reason they do this with living hosts instead of just dead things is because, well, it's fresher.
Well, yeah, I'm not
At least
surprised.
that's my understanding. That it's just higher quality for the hatchlings. But yeah, so eventually they eat their way out of this host, and that's what kills it. It's a pretty gruesome death for the host. Not quick or painless at all.
Eesh. Ugh. Nature sucks. First we find out that the spores from The Last of Us are affecting ants and could mutate and hurt us someday, And now we're finding out that the Xenomorph is most likely a thing. Bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
none of us have superpowers, but that's a thing. Bullshit.
Yep.
yes, but so supposedly that was the inspiration for at least that part of what the alien does or what the xenomorphs do.
Bullshit. I'm sorry. What you're saying is bullshit. It's just, well, this planet sucks. When the hell are we gonna get that Kryptonian that other universes have? Even if he's like Homelander, it would still be nice to just see something like that to know that it's possible. No, only the bad stuff is possible. This sucks. Bullshit. All right, so.
Yeah, I didn't know that you had such compassion for tarantulas and caterpillars.
Well, I do when something is eating them out alive. Poor tarantulas, poor caterpillars. Now there's something scarier in the food chain. Crap.
Look, that's the thing. That's the stuff that we can see on the surface. Imagine if we go further into the ocean, even though apparently coming soon, Ocean Gate 2 near you, and also above into space. We haven't even touched space yet. Imagine all the terrors that await us in that.
So I'm actually gonna jump on what you said there, the terrors that are waiting for us in outer space, because another thing I like about this film is that this is supposed to be the first contact. This is also one of those times, right? Like, they had never encountered an alien life form before, but they did, and this is one of those times where, like, this thing is hostile as all hell. And what's even weirder is the way they discover it is that they discover it inside the Metroid. They discover it inside the giant spaceship at the end. That thing has been the subject of so many things when you were growing up. At some point, made an homage to that. If you played Metroid, you blew one of those things open to get an extra power. It looked like what the Xenomorph, the ship that the engineers were in. Mm-hmm. That's, by the way, that's the name of the race that is holding on to that the eggs are there. The engineers. We all thought Prometheus was going to be about the engineers, and we were lied to horribly.
Oh, you were lied to horribly.
No, that's what I remember reading that it was supposed to be about. It was supposed to be about the engineers.
No, I mean by you, as in people who actually went in with knowledge beforehand.
That's why I got excited a little bit, because I always thought that, like, the engineers looked like those things from District 9. You guys ever see District 9? The prawns from District 9? That's what I thought they looked like. And just so you know, Ridley Scott did not design the Xenomorph. He didn't. A lot of people think that he did. He didn't. Ridley Scott didn't do any of the designs for any of this stuff. He just made a point of getting the cinematography on point with it. The designs for the Xenomorph were made by H.R. Geiger, another famous monster designer. Yeah. Right. So when it came time to Prometheus, to my understanding, now Ridley Scott has his hand in the cookie jar, and Ridley Scott didn't put in like the effort or whatever to, like, all right, well, what's the lore since I got here in '79? It was more like that Joss Whedon dickwad energy. Even though I love Ridley Scott, he's my boy. I love all his movies. Prometheus was that one time he dropped the ball, but the designs are different, and it shows when someone who does something from the ground up has the influence in the beginning. Because when you look at the Xenomorphs, those things, and this is gonna sound funny, but it's true because that's the intention. Those things look like a gigantic dick.
Is that just a little juvenile prank, or is there some sort of messaging behind that?
Well, they're predators.
They're predators, okay.
Yeah, like the idea is that they survive through sexual assault. They do. Even if you look at the way when the movie started, right, the eye sort of opens up a little bit like a vagina when you look at it.
Mhm.
It's because that's how they survive. Like its main attack is not to rip you apart initially. Its main attack is to try and impregnate you, or try to lay the eggs, or try to like feed itself to grow bigger so it can start laying the eggs inside of you.
Even though
Okay.
his blood is made out
Yeah.
of literal acid.
I do want some of the details on the life cycle. I mean, true to form, right? Because the thing that implants the egg uh, into Ridley Scott is not the is not the thing that eventually comes out of him. So I guess it's like the animal kind of splits into two parts, or maybe it has like a spreading vessel that initially comes out of the egg and attaches itself to a host, and
So,
then it like that, or maybe that's like the egg delivery mechanism.
so to my understanding, the way it works, right, is inside the egg you see the face hugger, right? The face hugger can survive for a certain amount of time without attaching itself to something else, right? But the face hugger is pretty much like the fertilizer. The face hugger is essentially that's the main egg. That's what's carrying the fertility. The egg. It's like the sperm, right?
Right, right.
The egg is kind of like an embryo that raises the face hugger. When the face hugger comes loose, the first thing it does is look for something, a life form, something wet and moist, and then it shoots out a barb from inside of it down your throat, or the creature's throat. At that point, that's spitting out the embryo and it's fertilizing itself inside. That's where the parasite is going in. It's going into your stomach or it's going into anything else. That then mimics the structure of whatever it's in. So that's why the first one looks kind of human, even has kind of like an odd sort of,
Interesting.
yeah, like it's
So
kind of because it's mimicking itself after Cain's body.
right.
So when it comes out of the
Interesting.
body,
Okay.
it looks kind of
Yeah.
like a person. Kind of, it has the two eyes, the nose, it has the two hands and the two legs, and then out it goes. Like it's just like it runs off. And once again, it has a super defense mechanism because it's like the perfect predator. Nothing can really in the wild hunt this thing because it has blood. Its flesh is made out of acid. Like, what's gonna hurt this thing?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, what can hurt this thing if its blood is like legit acid?
Save for the vacuum of
Yeah.
space
If
and a
it's
giant
cons-
explosion.
Yeah, I mean, like it needs to be able to survive its own blood, so it's got to be tough.
Yeah. But
But
that's
extreme heat and extreme cold, that feels like it's like kind of go-to methods.
but that's the other thing, right? Like when you walk into this one the first time, we're gonna ignore, when Michael Biehn shows up in the sequel with Bill Paxton and a few other people, and they start wasting these things left and right. When you actually think about it, right? Let's say this thing is a natural creature, an occurring creature. What is out there in the universe that could take this thing on naturally? Something bigger. Or is this thing the top of the food chain?
Or a predator, mayhaps.
No, because it always kills the predator and all those other interactions.
Spoilers. Okay, I haven't seen that.
The predators always lose. The predators always go out like bitches in those movies. I'm saving you like 3 boobless hours.
Oh, thank goodness.
The predators always go out like pansies in those movies against the aliens. Always. Always. Disappointment. That's, even if you play the old games that were on the 32X or on the PC back in the day, you're better off not picking the fucking predator because the predator only walks in with a knife, whereas the soldiers at least walk in with guns.
But didn't the predator don't the predators have like stealth? Or that's just like
It doesn't
like
matter
a
against these things.
hmm,
It doesn't matter. These things can suss you out. And these things have their own little stealth mechanisms too.
they do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Then you see
Oh,
like it knows how to blend in and knows how to hide without needing any technology.
well, he hid in the freaking vents in this movie, which was like very like I can see why that dick of an android was like so like admiring it, was like lasing that thing and just like giving all the praise to this thing, and it's like this thing is literally killing half of your crew, and the only reason it didn't kill the other half is because you were already trying to beat him to it.
So I
Yep.
actually wanted to talk about the technology about this. Do you guys think the technology look in this has aged properly?
Hmm.
Or does it look outdated to you now?
I feel given the time it came out versus now, I like the only thing that's kind of somewhat jarring is like when they go to type to mother, which I just love how that gets glazed over, but you know it is what it is. Like that feels like the only thing that's outdated, like how they type and like those
Mm-hmm.
sequences of it, like the processing. But other than that, everything feels like it holds up pretty well.
So I'm actually gonna point out something that my science professor let us know when this was happening. Very interesting dude. He wanted to be on the Mars program, but I don't think he was allowed. Like so,
What did he
they're
do?
just looking for very specific people to do the Martian program, and you have to pass like a series of psychological exams to be allowed on that. However, uh, the spacecraft that will take the first people to Mars, to my understanding, it's pretty much ready to go. Hasn't been built all the way yet, but because like before they build it, they need to find the 6 people that will make the journey to Mars, and they all need to have like a specific mental fortitude.
And these are the people that are not going to come back,
Yeah, this is
right?
like a one-way road. It's
Yeah.
like 3 or 4 years to get there, and it's a one-way trip. There is no coming back once you're there. Like that's
Right.
it. So that's why like they need to make sure that these people can go, for a long time without sex, without understanding that once they leave the planet, they are not coming back. This is a one-way trip. Basically you're
And,
marching into suicide, but they don't want
right. And
someone suicidal.
sure. Yeah.
So apparently on those spaceships though, there will be a lot of classic sort of MS DOS style command in the computers that are going to be used, because apparently if something goes wrong, code is the most accurate way to tell if something is wrong, and by entering the command directly into the motherboard, you'll get a response better than if you try to go through the OS uh, operating system. So it's better like to go past the operating system into the code and run the commands and check like, please tell me what's wrong with engine 2, and the system will be able to
Right.
come back and like spit the code at you. But if the system spits the code at you, if you're an engineer, very quickly you go like, oh, okay, this is the problem, suit up, we're going out there to patch this up or whatever the heck, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Air conversion unit, what's wrong with it? Boom, it tells you, right? So to my understanding, that may be more true to life than we thought it would be. Weird, huh?
Interesting. Yeah.
That's a cool little tidbit for that.
Remember, their spaceship is outdated by now. By the time you see it, the Nostromo is pretty much outdated. It's a very old, used ship.
Right. So everything else is beyond that.
Yeah, like everything else is way beyond what the Nostromo
Hmm.
has.
Do we get what year this takes place in?
Let me look it up.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, because at the beginning it says the name of the ship, the purpose of the mission, or the alleged purpose of the mission. Um, and where they're going, how much cargo they're carrying, but it does not tell you what year it takes place in.
Mm.
So, according to Wikipedia, it takes place in 2120. So, about 100 something years
Okay.
from now.
Yep.
2120.
I mean, I won't lie to you. I could see space travel looking like that in 100 years. I think we'll probably be on our way to Mars within like 20 years.
I hope so.
So once
The
we're
whole
in,
space thing is really kind of just until like maybe very recently, people seem to have just sort of like not really soured, but just gotten bored with the idea of space. It was like space was like after we went to the moon. I guess people must have thought, well, now like it's not even the sky's the limit. Beyond the sky's the limit. We're just gonna keep going. And we got Star Trek, we got Star Wars, and it seems like the expectations were high, but it's like we're all looking at our watches where it's like, we're still on the moon? Like,
yeah, no, the space race was not as, epic, but I think it's because as a culture and a society, this is going to get political as all hell, but I have a purpose to this.
okay.
Back to horror. As a society, I feel that we stopped focusing on expansion and we started focusing on paranoia. So, like, as opposed to, building rockets and figuring out how to get the biospheres working, Biodome is actually based on the real life biosphere. That was a real project that occurred. What wound up happening was, I think we stopped investing in those things. We started investing in manufacturing weapons and all this stuff. We stopped funding NASA for some odd reason, and we started funding other things to keep us in the planet, and our attention just faded. That's one side of it. The other side is I think when Star Wars and all these things were coming out, we didn't know about interstellar space to the extent that we know now.
Right.
So I remember, like, I figured out the concept of interstellar space as a kid. Like, if you stand outside of a spinning disk, right, then time passes you by. If we are living in a spinning disk, when we leave the spinning disk and watch it spin around 100 times, then we are no longer within time, right? It's like we've seen 100 years pass before our eyes. So now the new question is, how do we figure that out? How do we figure out how to travel within space-time quickly so that we can get somewhere within the blink of an eye, or at least get somewhere in real time and not, lose track of time too much when we leave the solar system?
Right.
Voyager only just left the solar system 10 years ago and is finally in interstellar space.
Mm-hmm.
So, odd things, tit for tat. Not everybody all at once. Yeah.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah. I have a question.
Sure.
What was that noise?
Oh, sorry, that was me leaving a room.
It
Shutting off the
sounded
light.
like a donkey. I thought it was going hee haw.
Yeah.
No, that's just the light switch.
Okay. Okay. I was worried for a second. I got a question.
Sure.
What? So we learn eventually that the real purpose of the mission is to look for alien life. That it's not really about hauling cargo. It's that the science officer Ash is actually a robot, and he's there to make sure that they get whatever aliens they come across.
Correction,
Well, my question is-
android.
Sorry.
He's an android.
Robot,
No.
android, or I'm sorry, do you people have a very specific way y'all like to be referred to?
Hey, look, an android is much different than a robot, and definitely
This
different
is
than
why
a
they
cyborg.
threw you off
okay?
the fucking
Let's
ship.
park here for a sec.
Incorrect. Get it right.
When was the last time we were PC on this podcast?
Never.
Never.
I've told people to go throw dog shit at Jennifer Aniston's house on more than one occasion around here.
You would have done that regardless of this podcast.
Robot, android, don't make no difference. Okay, but let's.
All right, you know what? If they kill you, don't say I didn't try.
Oh, please. Those people are allowed to talk and no bite.
Okay, but let's park here for a sec. What is the difference between an android and a robot?
Okay, so okay, you know what? Let's use it in like terms of like biology. So we'll start from we'll start from a human. So a human, you know how a human works: blood, flesh, meat, bones, stupidity with free will. All right, then you go to a cyborg. Humans can be made cyborgs when you give them enough mechanical components into their biology. Next down the line is androids. Which, okay, yeah, you can call them robots, whatever. Android just sounds like a better name. But a robot...
You just said there's no difference.
And there we have it. We have it. It's the same
Android
thing.
is more likely to pass for a human than a robot. You can tell what a robot is versus a human.
So they are the same thing. It's just one has rubber skin over its head.
It depends on
some big difference you just made, sir. Back to
calling
them
robot
robots.
is easily identifiable than an android.
All right, back to calling them robots. Back to that. So Ash is a robot.
Anyway, yeah. So it does turn out that Ash is a robot. But my question is, why is he a robot? Why did they send a robot to do that? Why did it need to be a robot or android?
Because he won't have empathy. They can program him to not be empathetic. Well, actually, he does have a little bit of empathy. But he's going to be programmed to do what he's supposed to. And on top of that, I doubt he would be a very big target for the Xenomorph also, because he's not really flesh and bones.
Actually, I have a better question. Why didn't they make a whole crew consisting of these androids who are shown to have superior strength than average humans? It took like what, 3?
Because the reason why they didn't do that is because
budget.
That's one, and B, they really needed to see what this thing could do to people. So if you go look at what the last line is, it's such an eerie line in my book too. That's like the creepiest part of this whole story. Is she opens up that book, she opens up the mission log for Ash, and at the very bottom it says crew expendable. So that means that they are probably less expensive than one of him is. Like, I'm assuming that Weyland-Yutani, when they make the robots, they're pretty pricey. So it's probably a lot easier for them to just be like, all right, you know what? Send an officer, send them on their task. When they're on their way back, we'll redivert them. Chances are he probably rediverted them himself, because he doesn't need to be in the cryostasis, really. He's an android. On top of that, he can be programmed to complete the mission, and he won't be... they can have deniability on it. Oh yeah, he malfunctioned. And later on, they actually try to pull that card on her. Like, oh yeah, he just malfunctioned. Like, she's like, are you out of your mind? That thing didn't malfunction. That thing was programmed to do that.
It's like pleading insanity. It was a human malfunction.
Yeah. It makes no sense, because they have the logs. They know that she had gotten authorization after they
Weyland-Yutani has the logs, not the government. Like, that's another thing. Weyland-Yutani is a private company. This is their ship. Those are their logs. He's their property. So at that point, they're kind of under the thumb of capitalists. Like, what happens in these situations? You're expendable. It sounds dark, but I mean, even in real life, how often do you hear about companies that pretty much just don't pay the workers, and the workers, well, fuck, not that far. all that nonsense going on with Boeing whistleblowers right now. Like, Boeing is out there going like, oh yeah, another person's whistleblowing. Another person dropped dead today because they're whistleblowing. Like,
That's
and
ominous.
Boeing is not the government. Boeing is a private company, but it's how it goes when they have a lot of money like that. It's tough to say like, oh yeah, we're just gonna report them and they're gonna go have justice met. That's not how it goes. Like, they go ahead and do something like that. What might happen is they're gonna get bumped off, or in Ripley's case, they have the right to deny everything, and then she's just stuck in outer space for Lord knows how long.
Hmm.
I don't know if you guys saw the sequels, but like it's like almost 20, 30 years before they find her ass.
Wait, she was like what, 6? At the end of the film, she said she was like 6 weeks out.
Yeah, they never find her again for years. Almost a couple years until they find her again.
He's just out in space.
Yeah, like
How
she's
could
stuck in the cryopod, just drifting out in space.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Well, if you're drifting, you might as well just hop into the cryopod.
Yeah, like that. Well, that was the ending. She jumps into the cryopod and
Yeah.
she's like, "I'm probably gonna be home any minute," and then there you go.
Years later.
She never makes it home. Like, I
Yeah.
don't. Like, when she wakes up, like, the world that she remembers is not there anymore, and she gets screwed. So it's horrible, but really, like, do you think the company, again, they're the faceless overlords? You never really see these people neither.
Right.
Like, you never see them, right? Like, you never really see them until any of their office until much, much, much later on. But they're kind of like just hanging around all of it in the background. They're the overlords. They're looking over everything. They're the ones in charge of colonizing. But that's how it goes. Like, capitalism, and they deny everything. They destroy the evidence. I mean, who's gonna ask? I could list a bunch of companies right now, and not even me with my typical like, yeah, fuck Disney mindset. Like, companies right now that are potentially have blood on their hands with how they exploit their workers, and we're using some of their products. We have frequented their shops. Like, the how
Yeah,
it
maybe
goes.
not mention any names.
Well, let's just say, ba 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 ba. Joy of blank blank blank. That was one of them. If you guys are from the '90s, it's like, if you know that jingle.
That tune does sound very familiar.
Yeah, when you figure it out, you're like, holy shit, I've drank these people's product a whole bunch of times before. They have hitmen in Colombia waste union leaders who want their workers to have better lives. Oh no!
I'm surprised there's not more companies. Actually, no. It shouldn't surprise me, considering that in order to employ like a private hit squad, you kind of need to pay them, and that people don't want to pay money anymore. They just want a assassin level hit squad that they can have on like at the push of a button.
No, but
Speed
like,
dial.
yeah, but like these things do
No, not even
occur.
speed dial, button. You just hit
So-
the red button in the office, and then like hit squad just gets dispatched, and they take out your enemies. No questions asked.
Yes,
Yeah, new Nintendo.
but to answer your question though, like, why not send the android? That's why. Like, it's a lot easier to cover it up as an accident. It's a lot easier to get rid of a couple of the one space crew. Worst case scenario, you just give their shares to whatever family they had and call it a day. And even then,
No,
they're not
but
going
it's
to give them all the shares. They're still going to go ahead and bullshit them out of the shares as much as they can. That's how it goes.
No, but it's like, if this is coming from a person that's gone through the workforce in the last like 5 years. It's like they could have easily just send a crew with just the android and those 2 annoying engineers, and that's how you cut costs to its bare minimum, because the android could have like accomplished this by
Once
some
again,
miracle.
though, you're going about it in the sense of someone who is looking at it from, this is an easier way to do it. Their
I mean, easier
way,
to smarter,
their
right?
way of doing it is they need deniability should this shit go tits up, and they need to lower the cost. Look at that spaceship. That spaceship is old. That spaceship has been run down. It is rusted. in certain parts. Like when they're running through when the acid is leaking through the hole and they're running it, you take a good look at that ship. It's like been through some stuff. It's all gritty and dirty looking. It's used.
I didn't think it looked that great, but I think it's more of like when they first touched land on the planet, and maybe just like the cinematography kind of made it look kind of awkward. But it's like slowly descending as slow as possible, and as soon as one of the legs like touches a pebble on the planet, it just like it starts combusting inside. I'm like, are you
Yeah,
kidding me?
because it's old. That's the thing. So it's like, what's more dangerous? Losing 3 androids that are worth $1 million and a $6 billion ship, or losing a ship that looks like it might have been worth $1 billion, a bunch of employees that you can easily just give their shares to someone else, and the one android that'll most likely pilot this low-ranked ship back without a problem with your sample that you need.
But the thing is like, I'm saying, like, if they didn't go with the current plan, they actually would have probably gotten the Xenomorph back home to Earth, where it will kill everyone on the planet.
Getting it back home to Earth wasn't even the full thing. It was contact. Once they made contact and they knew it was there, that's all they needed. Getting it back was a bonus.
Stupid bonus, because if you get it
For
back,
them,
you have
it
no
was a
idea how to
bonus.
contain it.
For them, it was a bonus, and that's what the android's job was, to see how it reacted to other people. So at that point, the android's sending them notes. Oh yeah, this thing kills people. So when they're in there, they're ready. The android in itself can be like, all right, how can I tame this thing real quick after everybody's dead? Let me see if I can shock it. Let me see if I can wrangle it. Because it's an android. Like, it's not. It never targeted him.
Well, he stayed safe the whole time.
Yeah, because
Like,
he's
it's not
observing.
like he. It was well. That's the thing. It's like not because of like the Xenomorph didn't want to target him. He couldn't find him. He played it safe. He just like sat. He sat. He's basically like a mage in a guild party. He just sat in the back and just let everyone did the hard work and get killed. Actually, I would like to point out that cat was the second most deadliest creature in that film, because that cat led that poor idiot engineer to his death.
Actually,
Like,
that idiot engineer went looking for him and should have left him alone.
well, here's the thing. It's like, what was the cat doing in the lock in the first place?
What again, Red?
I just said cats can take care of themselves.
Yeah. That cat was hidden in a nice little corner by itself, and then that guy decided to go looking for it.
Well, here's the thing: is like the cat saw what was behind him and didn't warn him.
How is a cat gonna warn him?
Like, look, if you're gonna
Do
keep,
cats
if
warn
the cat
anybody
knew,
of anything in real life?
yeah,
Cats
look,
don't give a fuck.
if a cat can make a noise, hiss and fuss and like eat my food and like take my
Okay, well, like,
it can
the
warn me
hiss
that
would be
someone's trying to
like-
find me.
The hiss would be the cat communicating with the Xenomorph, not the guy that's about to be eaten by the Xenomorph.
The cat's probably like, eat his ass and leave me alone.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. The cat literally got that man killed. That cat is a danger.
If it were a dog, I'd be like, okay, yes, the dog will try to save the day. Cats don't give a shit. You're asking a lot of a cat. Cats are conceited and annoying. Do you know that this is an actual fact I heard a few times around the web during the COVID-19 lockdowns? Did you know that dogs were showing to have much happier behavior because the human was at home all day, and cats were going through like depression and anger because the human was home all day? Like, cats were actually lashing out violently at their human owners, and the human owners like, why?
It's too much human.
I
Cats
love you,
are
and the cat's like,
assholes.
you're a human. Fuck off. You're supposed to leave like 8 hours a day and give me my space. Go away. I don't want to pet. I don't want you to pet me. I don't want you to play with that ball and the mouse again. I don't want to be in your cute cat pictures that you send to the fat people at your office. Go away. That poor cat was probably all groggy, like, these people are bothering me again, man. I'm just going to go back here and sit in this corner and watch the show.
Well, now I'm rethinking my theory about the cat pod. Maybe the cat would just like enjoyed having the run of the ship while everyone was under.
That cat
Yeah.
would have been stranded without a human to pilot him back home.
Hey, They had one of those automated food dispensers. That cat was golden.
You sure? Because like that alien was smart enough to hide on the ship in a most stealthy way after cutting off Ripley's path to the shuttle. Which I'm like, how did it do that? It literally used the cat as a hostage to bait out Ripley, and then somehow figured out that she was trying to blow that ship and the Kingdom Come, and so it hid without anyone noticing in the ship before she was able to get to it, and it took off.
Man, this is what I say again. This is why I threw you over the ship. This is how it goes. Cats don't give a fuck. Alright? Red, can you agree with me on that one? You own a cat that hangs out that tries to eat you once in a while. Does the cat seem like it cares whether or not there's a predator around?
Oh, the cat definitely cares whether there's a predator around. It just doesn't. I mean, he just doesn't warn me about it.
Bingo. What does the cat go
doesn't
and
tell
do?
me.
Hide, right?
Yeah, he hides.
So when you see the cat hide, what do? You hide and you walk away.
I ask him, "Well, what you doing, buddy?"
That's what he did. That's what the engineer did.
And when the cat doesn't respond, because it's like, motherfucker, you're blowing up my spot, go away. The cat doesn't respond, you're like, huh.
But here's the thing: the cat didn't have to run towards an area.
Alright, we're stuck on this fucking cat.
Yeah.
The cat did not get the guy killed. The guy got himself killed. The guy should have known better.
The cat got the guy killed.
The guy should have known better. That's all I'm gonna say.
That cat ran out of the locker.
End of story with this goddamn cat. We're moving past this goddamn cat.
Don't engage in cat blaming.
I will blame Jones. I don't care how cute that little critter is. That Jones the murderer.
Yeah, Jones.
He's
Jones
adorable. By the way, when that guy gets killed, that cat has the most beautiful shot in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For a murderer.
It's not the murderer. The cat was just hiding. The idiot went looking for the cat. Anyways, we're stuck on this
assisted.
goddamn cat. Moving past the cat. Moving beyond the cat. This cat is becoming my fucking Jennifer Aniston of the day. Forget this goddamn cat already. Move past the cat.
Alright, we'll focus on the
Okay, adding that to the list of enemies of the podcast.
No, the cat is not. The podcast that involves this AI guy who has an issue with a cat. Typical robots have a problem with the cats. Someone's just upset we called him a robot. We didn't identify him as an android. Robot. Damn it. Anyways.
You said the R word.
Yeah, I said the R word. Now say it again. Robot.
Yeah.
That's right. I'm some kind of cyber bigot. Robot. There.
Cyber bigot. CB.
Oh my goodness. Thank goodness you weren't in the Terminator franchise. You would have been killed on sight.
No, I would have been the best friggin' soldier on the planet, better than John Connor, 'cause I would have been calling them all kinds of slurs as I was shooting at them.
You would have went back in time just to specifically unalive your birth.
Anyways, continuing along.
You would have been spouting all the robot slurs. You would have made up your own robot slurs.
Yeah, I make up my own racial slurs all the time.
Okay, moving on.
See?
Moving on.
There we go. About time,
on. That's
right? We had to get there before we decided to move on.
Yeah,
Jesus.
okay.
Anyways, going on as we were. So
one thing that I think is interesting about the movie is that Sigourney Weaver, Ripley, doesn't really become the main character until about maybe like 3/4 in. Something like that.
When most of the people are dead.
Yeah, well, I mean, part of it is that mostly the people are dead, but like there's a leadership spot for her to fill. That's when she steps up. I think that's I think that's pretty interesting. And then afterwards, it sort of becomes Halloween in space. You know, where it's just they're picked off one by one, and the last person standing is a woman. And my wife actually pointed out that it bucked some of the gender stereotypes of the genre, in that and kind of intentionally, because it starts out, like we said, with John Hurt coming out of the pod, and the first two-thirds of the movie or so do show the male characters in more decision making capacities. Um, and but then like after everyone gets picked off, it is it's a woman that's the last one standing, and the focus of the film shifts to her. So it's sort of like set up like a typical sci-fi movie, but then it turns into something else.
So, a fun fact about Ripley. Uh, did you know that Ripley was originally written as a guy?
Interesting.
I've heard that long.
And that
Was it?
Ripley was actually a couple of famous actors went out for the role of Ripley that
Hmm.
are somebodies nowadays. But what wound up happening was Ridley Scott couldn't find a dude that fit the match. I think the one that was closest to getting the role of Ripley, the closest guy was Tom Cruise, young Tom Cruise,
Oh, interesting.
fresh coming off of Legend. I think he would have been coming off, or I think he went and did Legend with Ridley Scott later on. But they were the one. He was the one that was closest, and I think they also looked at one other dude to be Ripley. Can't remember who off the top of my head right now. But then Ridley Scott turned around and said, "You know what? I actually like Sigourney Weaver better as
Interesting.
Ripley."
So the character became female um, at the casting stage.
Yep, originally written as a
Interesting.
dude, young dude,
Yeah.
which
And they didn't I wouldn't think that they rewrote anything based on that, because it's like based on all the dialogue, there's nothing on the page that suggests female or male in that character.
no, to my understanding, they didn't need to rewrite anything. They just let it be.
Right. Yeah.
It worked out just right with Ripley as a lady.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's why they were able to do it, because the characters like dialogue isn't very. There's nothing like saying, "Oh yeah, you're a woman" or anything like that. Like
Right.
really,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
all of them are pretty much like it's normal to be with women on the ship already.
Yep. Yeah.
Because she's not the only lady on the ship.
She's
That
not.
other
Yeah.
lady was on the ship too, who I thought was Marge Simpson for a while, for the longest
Oh,
time.
the actress.
Yeah,
Oh,
'cause she
wow.
has a similar last name as Marge, the actress who does Marge Simpson's voice,
Uh,
and I was thrown off by it for a couple of years. For the
yeah.
longest time, I thought that was
Or,
Marge.
or,
Originally, I was gonna write this episode Marge versus the Alien, but then it was no. It's better to just name it after
what,
the guy who hates everything. He's the android.
Wow.
I mean, Marge would not stand for an alien pulling any shit on her ship. She'd be like, "Oh, you listen to me, Mister Alien."
I think she would have given everybody shit for letting that guy in there with that thing on his face.
Yeah.
Like that guy getting into the ship with that thing on his face is like a miracle on its own. But it's one of those times, right, where like I actually want to ask you guys: imagine you're in the setting, you're in outer
Mm.
space, you're light years away from home, and this dude, actually perfect example. I show up with the thing on my face. Are you letting all of us in the ship?
Nope.
You know, that's a tough call.
Nope. No, it's not a tough call. It is not a
Of
tough
course
call.
you
No.
would
No, what-
call
no,
it
I
the
mean-
way you did, android, robot.
The
You're such a robot.
No, the robot in the film let the thing on the ship. I am choosing
Well, I
the
mean-
opposite.
It depends on what you think is the harder decision, because on the one hand, protocol does say that you have to give people have to be in 24-hour quarantine in that kind of situation, um, and that protocol is in place so you can protect the the people that are still on the ship, which is usually a larger number of people than have been exposed to whatever contagion they were exposed to. But the people that are asking to be put on the ship, especially in this case, there's a potential emergency. This person could die before the quarantine ends, and getting them onto the ship, you might be able to save them. And it's sort of like this is an interesting way in which the movie kind of fakes us out as far as what Ash is about, because in that situation, I think he makes the decision that appeals more to an emotional based interpersonal sense of compassion. Like, he really cares about he really cares about these individuals that are in need, so he's the one that lets them on, whereas Ripley is the one that's arguing for the more distant rule based less emotionally driven approach. So I guess both decisions would be hard, but I think that what the decision that Ash makes is kind of the more human decision.
So, as someone that had to follow protocols for a long time at my old job,
Mhm.
I wouldn't have let them in.
Okay.
Uh, I'll explain why though, and it's not because like, oh, I know, or the gift of hindsight. A lot of the times when people put together protocols, especially like OSHA manuals and all this stuff, it's put together because someone somewhere screwed up, they got hurt, and now they have to double back and put in solutions, right? That's
Mhm.
usually how it goes. So when someone puts in a safety protocol, you have to be able to understand why these things happen. At one of my jobs, I remember one of the safety protocols was when you go do a home visit, never turn your back on the person you're visiting.
Yes. Yeah.
Like always keep your back up against the wall so nobody can
Mhm.
surprise you, and never ever, turn your back on anybody in a house. Like you're going in unarmed, so do your best not to turn
Yeah.
your back. And I'd heard cases where people were like a little too comfortable, and then stuff happened. So this is one of those times where it's like you don't know what's on that guy's face. It was
Yeah.
strong enough to break through a fiberglass, like almost damn near bulletproof helmet to get on his face.
You're right. Yeah.
I would not let that thing on the ship.
Right.
Like it's
Yeah.
just we don't know. Like obviously too, right? Wherever we come from, when a tick attaches itself to you, it's planting a parasite. It could be a parasite. It's better to not let it on. At most, what I would have done is you're gonna hang out in the airlock, and if anybody wants to go hang out with him in the airlock, they're allowed. But from there, the rest of you guys, like, you have to understand, you're walking out onto the field. You have to understand that if a hazard happens, you're risking your life. You agreed to do this, and you know the consequences. It
Right.
is what it
Well,
is.
but what I'm saying is that in order to follow that protocol, there does have to be some sort of emotional distance that you can achieve, because you're refusing someone help.
Well, yeah.
You're you have to um and I'm not saying that that's not and I'm not saying that's never justified. I'm just saying that it may go against one's emotional instinct to follow that kind of protocol, even if it is a justified protocol.
Oh no, I totally get it. It
Yeah,
is one of those things where it's like I have owned that it is a thing, right? That's
yeah.
like it happens. But I'm actually gonna make the ghost of Leonard Nimoy very proud. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
That's exactly what I was thinking of. Yeah,
It's one of those things that makes you sound like a Vulcan emotionalist monster.
yeah,
However, at the end of the day, one person getting hurt, and then this used to happen at this job too, where it was like people would tell me like, "Hey, you need to approach this with a bit more of emotionality." I go, "Yeah, I approach it with emotions. It's just at the end of the day, like part of our protocol is do not let yourself get emotionally involved with these folks. Just don't do it
right.
because at the end of the day, like." you're not really their friend. You are their manager. You're their care specialist. Like, you're not their
Mhm.
friend. I was basically a probation officer. So
Yeah.
you
Yeah. I
can't
mean,
allow yourself to get to emotion. You can't allow emotions to hit you that hard. Like, you can allow it after the fact. Like, I feel bad that I did that. But in those 5 minutes, like, those 5 seconds, like, you're looking at this guy like he has this thing on his face. Or one thing I dealt with one time, where, like, a dude. I'll leave it like this: a dude was in a dangerous situation, and he did something very dangerous regarding his children.
mhm.
And he was always nice to me, but he did something dangerous regarding his children, and I saw it. And then I can get in trouble if I don't say anything, so I did.
Yeah.
Protocol dictates I have to say something that I see that might be potentially hazardous in the home of any of the people that I was dealing with. And I
Yeah.
had to say something. People are like, oh, but he was always so nice to you. Like, he was. Unfortunately, though, that's not going to really help me in the long run, is it? Like, that's his problem, not mine. I just signed the paperwork and he goes away. It goes away.
Mhm. Yeah.
But it is what it is. But it sounds emotionalist when I say it, but it goes back to it. Like, you have to understand these protocols were created for a reason, because people have obviously wiped their asses with them in the past, and they have suffered the consequences of doing so.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't have done it, not with the gift of hindsight, just,
Yeah.
you know, logic.
But, but
Sure.
here's the thing. Let's just ignore hindsight for a moment. Let's we could disregard the fact that Ash was a person that was programmed by a soulless corporation, so for the sole purpose of trying to see, oh, let's see if we can magically find an alien and see what happens from there. Like, everyone else on the ship is familiar with the protocol. They got the training. So why did like I think it was like the second female crew member got emotional when her crewmate gets attacked by the face hugger form of these aliens. Like, from that point on, you should have realized that when that happened, when that thing pierced the helmet, as you said, that was near bulletproof, that should have been an indicator that he's dead. Regardless, either he's dead on impact of that thing, or he's dead if you manage to somehow magically remove it from him. So bringing him back onto the ship is, well, it's like you're basically either you're inviting a ticking time bomb, essentially.
Yeah.
So at that point, when that thing hit his head, and you can't have no other way of safely testing whether or not you can safely bring him back safely. Yeah, no, he's just considered dead at that point. So you don't even have to get to the point where you are at the whim of someone just opening the airlock and allowing him to like just come back onto the ship without any against protocol. So yeah, like, I can't fully blame Ash in that situation.
Actually, it was all Ash, because the one who was making the call was making the right call, and then Ash went and opened it because he needed the cargo.
Right, but like, there are other humans. They are
They were
not
telling her, but
pre-programmed.
they were letting her make the decision. He overrode her decision.
Right, but like, she said from the get-go, we're not letting him in. This is and XYZ. Like, use proper logic. But the thing is like, they chose to ignore that after Ash ignored her and opened up the airlock. They could have chose to just leave.
Well, because they're freaking out, dude. Like, it
But
is.
it's like,
Like,
what I'm
there
saying
is
is,
going
like,
to be
got training.
emotions, because everyone's freaking out, because at the end of the day, like, you don't want to die with this guy out here on this random ship. Like, if this thing's on his face, it's a matter of time till it gets on everybody else, you know?
Yeah, but that's when you leave him. Like, oh, it hit his face, you leave him. You leave. He's dead. He's gone. And if by some fortunate/unfortunate miracle that he comes back safe and sound, well,
Well, hey, dude, shit happens.
Well, I
You don't
mean,
have
you
any
know,
say.
there's someone that's in peril. You know, I understand the instinct to want to help someone in peril. Maybe they could do something for him to get the thing off or prevent it from getting too bad.
When they tried, remember that thing, the blood When they
Yeah.
tried to pull it off, it tightened itself around his neck even harder.
Yeah, but that was after
It
they
did.
were
It's
on the ship.
like,
That was after
oh,
it was already on the ship and they cut open the helmet in order to
it's
get
like
to
this parasitic starfish spider snake.
it.
Freaky.
Why do I imagine it sounding like Patrick Star now?
Hey, SpongeBob, I'm a starfish, not a parasitic spider starfish snake.
Also,
Oh.
I can't help. Side note, I can't help how fast that thing grew. That thing was a baby.
Well, you
And
gotta
it was
remember, in cinema minutes, every minute is like at least an hour or 30 minutes ish. It's not running in real time, so
It depends.
still.
it depends.
It
But
was
like
like
this one, I feel like it was a couple of hours.
Yeah,
a couple
yeah.
hours
No,
is
unless,
already the size of a
unless you're,
giant.
yeah, that's typically true unless you're watching High Noon, which takes place in real time. But that's a different conversation.
Ah, yes, that's an interesting film. But yes,
Um,
every president watches it apparently.
every president watches it.
That's the one, right, where he has to defend his town on his own.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
every president watches that movie,
Oh, as like a sort of a model for
sort of thing. Yeah,
leadership.
like it's a movie that's
Yeah.
recommended among the presidents.
Interesting. Yeah.
Since like
And
Reagan
yet,
or before Reagan, it's been recommended to every president. Watch it.
oh, interesting. And yet, Gary Cooper himself was never president.
No, he was not.
Mm.
But it's one of those things. Like, it's an odd film. But
Mhm,
yes, very interesting film. Just like one more interesting thing, I'm actually gonna point out with this one before we move into closing. Uh, this movie also was pretty ahead of its time in a very specific avenue. Uh, you have a female lead towards the end, and on top of that, the crew has two women and a black dude on it,
Mhm.
which for the '79 era was beginning to show that trend because we had Dawn of the Dead earlier in the year, and then we had Alien. So when people tell me that horror films are not inclusive, I am going to refer to you to Alien, because Yaphet Kotto was in so many horror movies in the 80s. I don't know how many. I can't even begin to name how many like horror movies I saw that guy in. I know I saw him in a few other sci-fi films over the years. He was in The Running Man also, and there he is in this one, and the same thing, leading lady with Sigourney Weaver.
And he
So-
doesn't die first. I was betting on this man dying first.
Oh, really?
I'm
You're
like,
saying that robot, assuming that the black man's gonna die first?
I
We
didn't
learned
know
something
that
about
was the
your
robot.
programming today, Bolt. That's what we learned.
Well, here's the thing. This is an interesting case study with horror because it's like horror has gotten this like cliche notion that minorities are the first to die in their films. But in my experience on this podcast, whenever I see a minority in the films predating the 90s, that's not the case.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's an interesting case study, which I'm like, I would like to know when did we fuck up and create this cliche, just killing off my
Right. Well, I mean, is that a cliche or is that actually true?
It's
Or
a
is
cliche.
it only true of a certain era?
No, it's a cliche. There's a reason why it's a cliche.
It's
Or
a cliche.
I misspoke. So there's cliches, but I guess I was asking, is that like a myth or is that actually true?
It's a myth. That's the better way to put it. Yeah,
Right,
It's
yeah.
it's a myth because I found a few movies where you have black survivors in the '80s, and there's a lot of movies I've seen too in the '90s where you have black survivors. Like I think the untouchable black guy in the '90s was LL Cool J.
Mm-hmm.
LL Cool J walked away from a fight with Michael Myers, some sharks, some crazy serial killers, and some films I've seen him in before. Then you had Busta Rhymes beat up Michael Myers with a stick. Fuck you, Busta Rhymes. You know what? Pull out your enemies list. Add Busta
Alright, here
Rhymes
we go.
to the bottom of that enemies list. Fucking Busta
alright.
Rhymes putting out kung fu and shit, beating up Michael
okay.
Myers.
All
God
right,
damn it.
before-
Add him
before
again,
we
just
add
for the
it-
sake
no,
of.
no.
Two
Before
times.
we add in to the
Him
chart
and
board.
Tyra Banks. Just put them both right on there.
Okay.
What's wrong with Tyra Banks?
She was in that movie too.
Oh my goodness! Wait, one could argue the only reason that were to happen is because they were prominent, like artists, like hip hop artists. If it was anyone else,
All right.
that
When
wouldn't have
Halloween
happened.
rolls around, I had a recommendation for us. It's a film that's pretty much widely available nowadays called Night of the Demons. When we watch Night of the Demons, everyone in that film is a no-name, and we will discuss this subject once again when we get close to that one. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
All right.
Yes. Angela is having a party, and you're invited. Jason and Freddy are too chicken shit to come. But yes, that was the actual advertisement for that one. But I just wanted to ask you guys like one more question on Alien to close this
Yeah.
for this one though. What did you guys think of the design of the alien though?
Phenomenal. Like it was breathtaking seeing that, and that's why I was so confused when I looked at the year this movie came out. I'm like, what? 1970, right?
That's a dude in the outfit, you know.
It's a costume, yeah.
Yeah, it's a dude. That's a costume.
The thing that really blows me away about that costume is the movement of the mouth. Like when the alien bares its
Yes.
teeth and it growls, it's like lips are trembling, and it's like that is detail that's so fine. And I'm just like, how in the world are they doing that?
It's phenomenal work. Like,
Yeah.
man,
Great.
like it's like CG be damned.
Exactly. Oh
So-
my gosh, I can't stop saying it. It would look so horrible if it were CG, but it
You know
looks.
what?
Oh,
I've
yeah.
seen the alien in CG before, and it looks like shit. You know what?
Yeah.
Can you
Lost.
throw that also right there onto the enemies list? CG fucking studios.
That's
Or
fair.
Yeah, just
Oh,
throw that
I
one
see.
in there.
Notable. I will say there are notable exceptions.
I know there are, but when it
Yeah,
comes to the horror movies, they always give us assholes. Just throw them in
Oh,
there.
yes. Yeah, I think we talked about this on a previous episode. How CG can work in a horror because a lot of the scary stuff happens in low light, and when CG is in low light, it looks more real.
Yep. Like it would look way better. Like this one, for example, if you were to go do CGI, fucking Ridley Scott's already doing it now. I'm pretty sure with Alien Romulus.
Mm.
Like if you were to put the CGI on this one, it would work in slight doses because of the fact that it's in shadow. But if it's not in shadow, it's not gonna work.
Yeah, I think it also depends on how complex the image you're showing is. If it's a pretty simple image, it can look good. But if you're doing like a whole character, it's just sort of like it breaks the spell.
Yeah.
Also because, and I think again we mentioned this previously, it also helps if a lot of the characters are CG. But if there's only like one or two, like in a horror movie, there's often just one monster, and if the monster is the only thing that's CG, it's not going to be convincing because your eyes haven't become accustomed to seeing CG throughout the movie. If it's just once in a while, it's going to be like, that's fake. But if it's something you see consistently, it's like you kind of get used to it and it starts to feel real.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I'm also not a fan of like CG animation for that reason too. I'm noticing it doesn't age well.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, even Lord of the Rings, like the Gollum still looks real, but those tree guys are those look pretty bad now.
The trees suck.
Yeah.
But no, like one example I'll give from my end. I was watching Toy Story 1 the other day.
Mhm.
Toy Story 1 looks like absolute shit now.
It does. Oh, it
It looks
it
so
kind of breaks
bad.
my heart. It kind of breaks my heart because I love the movie.
Yeah.
But when you first sit down and watch it now, it's like, oh.
Yeah, like, this
you get
looks
used
like
to it, but-
shit.
I have
Used
to go
love
test
it.
that.
And the reason why is because, for example, I just watched X-Men '97 this month.
Okay.
I'm not going
That's-
into spoilers. I'm just gonna point
No,
out
I feel
something
like
the
that was
animation
the
style.
worst thing you could see because I feel like that's like I wouldn't say recency bias, but like when you have something that looks that good and you go back and watch something.
No, I'm
much.
not. Again, I'm gonna point out from the beginning. I'm a fan of like single dimension animation. I'm not a fan of 2 and 3D animation like that.
Okay.
Like, I went after I binged it. I loved it. I decided, you know what? Let me rekindle with the old 94, 92 X-Men and watch that just to see how it goes. And that animation, although a little slow, still looks good. It looks like a moving comic book image from like the 70s and the 80s. And it doesn't look bad. It doesn't look super dated. It doesn't look like crap. I saw that. Then I decided, you know what? Why don't I go check out this one film that everybody hates but I like, which is close to like Alien. It's called Dead Space. Dead Space. It's on YouTube now, but it's a sort of like space alien inspired horror film, and the animation in my book also still holds up. Still very nice. I say all that to say this: CGI ages, and the more that it ages, the worse it looks.
Yeah.
It doesn't age
it's
nice.
interesting. That's a good observation. CG ages like 2D hand drawn animation doesn't really, at least not as starkly, or not in a way where it's hard to look at.
Yeah, like for example, it's the age kind of gives it a small charm to it, right?
Yeah.
But like, I was watching this really crappy show with my niece over the week. She watches Cocomelon, and I'm looking at this like CG. This is awful CG, but I'm like, all right, it's for a baby. But then I'm like, there are some shows out there that are for kids, like the Spider Friends that's on Disney Plus that looks like this, and this is terrible. But then you go watch like the '90s Spider-Man, like even the designs and the logos are pretty cool. Like I was telling this to my brother, like, hey, if I ever had a child and they were to say I really like Spider-Man, I would be buying them stuff from the '90s Spider-Man because it has that cool, sharp, defined logo. It's not just a boring metallic thing plastered onto the screen like what we do nowadays with a lot of our superheroes. And it ages. It doesn't look good. Like all the stuff from when we were kids, like I've had to go back and do some deep dives. A lot of the contemporary stuff for our childhood doesn't look as good as we thought it did when you actually go back and visit it. I don't know if I'm the only one having that effect.
Because like like you mentioned, the Spider-Man anime series was around the same time as the Batman anime series, and I feel like those things both hold up pretty well.
Batman the animated series, I think it came first, but they also had a different artist behind it. And again, it goes back to it. The art still looks timeless on both of them. But then there was a CGI Batman show that came out a couple years ago. It got canceled not too long after it came out.
Wait, the Batman? No, not that.
It was Enter the Batman or something like that.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me look it up.
It doesn't look nice. It doesn't look very good. It looks kind of lifeless.
Oh, Beware the Batman.
Beware the Batman.
Oh my! What is? Oh,
That looks like shit.
What is this?
Beware the Batman.
It's off my screen right now. What is this?
It looks like shit.
Oh,
You're like, what? Why? Why was this ever allowed?
Oh gosh.
You know what other show sucks that some people used to love when I was a kid?
Yeah.
Reboot. And like this show was supposed to be high tech when it first came out, Reboot, and it's like you look at it now, and this thing looks like crap.
Yeah.
The Canadian
There's
series,
some like
1994.
real sort of landmarks. There's some like landmarks in CGI that still hold up. Like I remember Shrek was a pretty big step forward in CGI, and that still looks pretty good.
You know why Shrek still looks good though?
Why?
The design on Shrek is very simple, and it's also very wacky and bombastic looking. So you can get away with that. The reason why I brought up all this is because I heard somewhere they were supposed to do an Aliens animated series. a la Ghostbusters,
Uh,
and they drew the aliens and everything to look like it. When I saw it, I'm like, you know what, this would have worked. But if you were to go do the alien in CG and you were supposed to do like a CG alien movie like by Pixar or something, it wouldn't look that good. It would look kind of
Right.
shitty. I don't see a way that movie comes out looking good like Final Fantasy. It wouldn't look that nice.
Yeah.
But yes.
Well, I feel like Alien, our 1979 version, is sort of like, oh, as far as the visuals go, it's kind of like aging proof. Like I can't imagine that. I can't imagine a time in which that doesn't look pretty good.
Neither can I.
The one kind of a little maybe bit of a cheesy part is when the little alien that pops out of John Hurt's chest runs away across the table. That does look kind of Sesame Street puppet-ish. That's really the only thing that kind of broke the spell for me.
Yeah, it also didn't help that Spaceballs had that sequence.
Yeah,
Hello,
yeah.
my baby.
That also doesn't help.
Who was it? Get a water? Hell no! Get it as a Pepto Bismol. Oh man, that was such an awesome movie.
Yeah.
I love you, Mel Brooks. You were responsible for my very very bleak and cynical look on the world. One day we will do Blazing Saddles here when we're all drunk and high and agree to go sit down and watch that. One day.
Why it has to be in that combination?
I've watched it. I watched it fairly recently, but I'm always up to watch Blazing Saddles.
Yeah, one day. I have to do all of that to break my rule about no horror. That's all it is. That's all it is. I have to be all those things to break my rule about no horror. Non-horror related subject. And Blazing Saddles would be very fitting because, much like horror, it's also under attack these days.
Right.
It's a very, 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 very hard-in-tone film.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
The sheriff is a bang. I'm not going to continue that one.
We can talk about it.
Well, we'll get there someday.
Sure,
We'll
yeah.
get there someday. All I know is, as of right now, we are hitting the mark. We were able to finally go into not a straight review, straight retread of the film and get stuck on a fucking cat for about 2 hours. So I'm going to give myself a pat on the back. I'm going to say this as my closeout statement for today. Out there in space, the cat still doesn't give a shit about you. What about the rest of you?
I think we should just call this episode That Darn Cat.
You know what? Let me see if I can.
You can. It's not that hard.
I'm trying. Don't hassle me, Bolt.
I will hassle
leave
you.
it as what it is.
As our resident local android.
You know what?
I
Now
have
I'm
to
leaving
put
it there.
hassle.
Bolt the robot. Actually, you know what? I am going to try and change it. Bolt the robot versus the ant versus the.
Oh, now you want to change it.
Yeah, I'm
At least I
going
know
to
how
change
to.
it.
At least I know a good way how to go you into doing something now.
Well, that's if I still learn how to do it. I'm still struggling here. Gah.
Oh, while you struggle.
Oh, here we go. Bolt the robot versus that darn cat.
Nah, you're just being petty.
There we go. Yes, I am petty. Petty is the name of the game around here.
Well,
we go.
for my closing statement, if someone is looked to be injured and is not looking too well, whether they are alive or not, leave their ass behind. You book it. You leave them. Save everyone money, time, and lives.
Spoken like a true robot.
Yes.
I have no regrets.
Yeah, you
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
It's
I do have
exactly
one
what a
regret.
robot
It's
would
not-
say.
Okay, the only regret I would have is not being able to leave you faster or not leave you multiple times.
What? How can you leave us multiple times? That's such a
If you come
robot
back,
thing to say.
if you come back
Well,
from the first
that-
time,
that-
I
that-
can leave
that's
you.
assuming that we take you back. Why would we take you back after you leave us the first time?
Yeah.
I'll leave you no choice. I'll give you no
Oh,
choice.
so you'll follow us.
So you'll follow us, stalk
Well,
us.
if you
not
come
get
to
the
me,
point?
you're stalking me.
Yeah,
so...
stalking you. They threw you over a ship. Exactly shit like this. This is why you're landing here hanging out with a fish and a pumpkin. Look at your life choices, sir.
You agree to disagree, but
You
yeah,
disagree.
it's
It is what it is. Fish. Robot. Alright, robot. Alright, red. Has too many R's and alliterations here. And I just found this really nice Rio Brazilian steakhouse place I want to check out. So anyways, what are your closing thoughts on this one, Red?
Well, it's a fine movie. I'm a fan of it, and I think I've exhausted just about everything I had to say on it. So
Nice.
there we go. Closing thoughts are: I have no more thoughts.
Nice. And one day we will return to this subject and cover the video game one, Aliens, the sequel. But that won't be anytime soon. That'll be when we decide to do Ghastly Hallows 2, The Search for More Money. Alright. I'm sorry, I can't stop with the friggin' Spaceballs references. Like, when I get into these parody movie references, I just can't help myself.
Spaceballs, the towel.
Spaceballs, the license plate. Spaceballs, the flamethrower. Actually, let me also add that into the title right over here. Both the robot
Ghastly Hallows, the
versus-
flamethrower.
versus Spaceballs. There we go.
Oh my goodness.
There we go. There we go. There we go. And where's my tab?
Wait, why do I see Cartoon Theory, and Pokemon?
I don't
Hashtags?
know.
What are you doing, good sir?
I don't know. I'm tired. I'm trying to find my music to close this thing out.
Oh,
You're not making life a lot easier.
I'm not making it harder.
You're supposed to make it harder. Easier. Whatever. Alright. And that was That Darn Cat. The episode of this the name of this episode for the Ghastly Hallows. I'm Pumpkin Jack, and I was accompanied by not everybody at
Space
once.
Red.
I always wait for him to do it, and then he does it, and then when I'm about to, he doesn't. It's a catch-22. The abandoning AI bolt. And I will leave you as fast as a parent going out for milk.
Robot. And don't forget, Red. We kind of muffled you over on that one.
Sorry,
You got muffled out. Just call your.
muffled out. No, I was going to ask: is that the policy? I go first, then you go, Bolt.
I don't know. It is now.
It slowly has become one. The robot
Okay,
has resigned
okay.
himself. So
We'll go forward. Okay, it was unwritten. Now it's written.
yes. So, and with that, hopefully we will see you again next week. Should life not throw another wrench in my plans. Today I honored Daddy Nimoy, and hopefully he shouldn't interrupt us anymore. I apologize. And with that,
Right.
this episode should be up on Spotify soon, and I hope everyone's having themselves a good one.